Hello and welcome to today's episode of Dr. Simone's Mindspace. I'm very excited to be able to talk to somebody that I think a lot of my audience will be interested to hear about. And we have Graham here live from LA, taking his time in his very busy calendar to share his passion with all of us about how it is to not be on your screen all the time and actually enjoy a life without your phone in your hand. So I'm curious to hear what you have to say, Graham, and I'll give you the word to introduce yourself, and looking forward to hearing more from you.
Okay, great. Well, thanks so much for having me. Like you said, my name's Graham Dugoni. I started my company Yondr in 2014, and my interest has always been in sociology and philosophy of technology, and I've kind of taken my interest in that and applied it to what's going on with phones and I think the internet. And the concept behind my company is that we create phone-free spaces. We do that all over the world,
Right.
all different kinds of spaces, but we focus primarily on live performance and education.
Wonderful. You know, because I'm on the screen, my child is screaming now. I will bring him into the screen so he will stop crying.
Sure.
He actually is very screen sensitive. I think it's very interesting to see how a child can be very this is Raphael, by the way. How children respond already in such a young age to the screen, right? And if you're preoccupied doing something else then being present, that they respond very much. I'm sure you have a lot to say about that as well.
I think any parent observes it, or they can watch the way their child reacts to watching a TV screen or a computer. And, I think people know that they can watch the reaction that it has. Yeah.
I noticed my partner feeding him and having his phone in his hand, and how the child was looking at him and him looking at his phone instead was such an obvious situation where you noticed that he was not attentive, right? So
yeah, I think it plays out in a lot of different ways, in a lot of scenarios at small levels, and households and things have divided attention. We also talk about it a lot at musical shows. Just what I think, to me, when someone's oriented towards a screen or what's going on in the screen, it's saying, in a subtle way, it's saying what's happening in this room is not quite enough. And so someone's thought waves are going out to some other place, and it just leaves the room. And when someone comes back to themselves in that place, everything is different. It's not the way it was a couple minutes before.
Exactly.
And when you have thousands of people in a room, that plays out a lot of times, and it changes the feel a lot.
Absolutely. That's a very interesting point about the scenery changing when you're sort of leaving the room, even though you're in the room but you're on your phone. You're not present, and you don't understand what's going on in the actual room, right? And you give the other person also this feeling of like being not interesting enough.
Yeah. I mean, that's the message it sends.
Yeah.
Whether someone intends to or not.
Yeah.
And even at shows, I've had a lot of conversations with people saying, I like to just snap one photo at a show really quick, or two photos, and I'm not very bad. I totally understand that, but once you change your mindset to recording something, or you enter into that other medium, you can't expect everything to be the way it was when you come back.
Exactly.
And so that over time, that just has this effect of kind of sucking the energy out of a room, I think.
Absolutely. Because it just takes away the full presence, and it's this distraction that really just takes away the sparkle somehow. Yeah.
It does. And I mean, I use the examples of shows a lot because it's very easy to see. You know, a great music show, there's a rhythm to it, the way it builds, and it kind of builds towards a crescendo, and it starts the moment people enter the building. You know, it's orienting yourself towards what you're about to experience, and everyone's starting to get on the same frequency. So if everyone is sending emails or doing things right up to when the curtain opens, and then throughout they're kind of fragmented, well, it doesn't allow the thing to build in this way. And the people who are most attuned to that are the artists. Yeah. But everyone knows it at some level as they experience it. And that's what I enjoy when we do big shows or any show, is that you can kind of see people reorienting. And it doesn't take much. I mean,
no.
When you take a smartphone out of the equation, people reorient very quickly. They just need, I think, a little help.
Yeah, true. It's like this little one here seems to really want something else but attention. So it's very fascinating actually to see. This is like in my face right now, an experience of not being fully dedicated to him. I'm like doing like a life experiment here with my child. Yeah, I guess he's been spoiled today about being fully attended to, and now not so much. I guess that's interesting experience as well.
No, I understand. I think in the U.S. at least, a lot of parents are having a lot of difficulty communicating with their kids as their kids get older.
Yeah,
and I think a lot of that comes back to what we're talking about, and just the way young people's brains are starting to be patterned by the medium of communication. And you know, the good thing is, as science shows, I think people's brains are very plastic and they can change. And what we see, especially with students, is that they might be on their phones a lot, and there's all these different social behaviors that are probably not very good that are coming out of that. But when you remove phones from a school, even after 2-3 weeks, students reorient very quickly. Their body language changes, the noise level in the school and the cafeteria goes up. Games start being played again, card games. They start playing outside. It happens really quickly. Aww. So I think in the modern world, it just takes the absence of some of these tools in this particular space to allow these other things to flourish. And that was the fundamental insight for me with Yondr, is that these things that we value, that hold the fabric of society and give meaning to people's individual lives, they require these spaces that have to be set aside, similar to a national park system, in the United States, that are set aside and kind of allow these things to flourish. Right. But they have to be protected.
What a beautiful analogy. I really love that, because it's also connecting with nature again. Connecting with other humans is connecting also to a degree with nature, right? It's connecting to another human being.
Definitely. Yeah. I think the things that are, nature has seen to it, there's a professor of philosophy of technology in Montana. His name's Albert Borgman, and what he has always said is that nature has seen to it that the things that are most profoundly enjoyable for humans are also the best for us.
Right.
And so, for me, a lot of the new thinking around online communities, online things, it's kind of a social experiment. It really, and I think we're starting to see some of the results. So
the results, right?
Yeah, it doesn't mean it's going to go away, but I think what people have been thinking is these are going to be focal points or centerpieces of our lives. I don't think that's true. I think we're seeing what that leads to, and these things that are engage your body and mind in your social, social interactions, and then bring you closer to nature and the outdoors and tangible things seem to be the things that ground us and build real community.
Absolutely. I think that's really such an interesting thing. We can also see now after the pandemic how people really enjoy going back to their workspaces to meet with other people again, right? The tiredness of Zoom meetings and yes, it's okay to have it to a degree. I really appreciate the opportunity to have it. But it shouldn't be the only way of communicating, right?
I agree. I think it's the spice. It's not kind of the meat and potatoes of what our diet should be. Yeah.
Absolutely. So maybe you could tell a little about your projects in the schools that you're doing. That would be very interesting to hear.
Working in education is one of the pillars of our company, and there's a very definite reason for that. I mean, I think every parent is thinking about and concerned about what does it mean to raise a kid or a young person in today's environment? What is unrestricted internet use going to lead to? Not just the negative things they see online, not just the cyberbullying or things like that, but also what type of education are they receiving? How are they building a structure of knowledge in their head? What does that look like? Because the internet is not conducive, in my opinion, to building distinctions of meaning. You know, it's flat. The internet is flat, and everything has the same value, more or less, as everything else. So another way to put it is easy come, easy go for information. You know, teaching data retrieval to a student is not learning; it's data retrieval. You know. So I think for us, that's always been a big part of what we wanted to focus on, is realizing that if you can create a phone-free campus and allow kids to just be themselves, all these negative things that are coming out of schools right now, whether it's TikTok challenges or it's, at some level, I believe the rise in anxiety and depression amongst young people attached to social media.
Absolutely.
It's the lack of developing social skills.
Yeah.
All these things, in the US, a big problem is fights and kids, you know, problems with that. There's a lot of problems with privacy, because you can imagine being a student, a middle school student, say 7th, 8th grade, your most embarrassing moment being recorded and put on the internet. That would be devastating. So we've always tried to focus on saying in the early days, a lot of teachers came to us and said, or I would be going to schools and they said, I'd love to use this. I want to use this for my classroom, just my classroom. And I always said, well, it would really work a lot better if your administration is ready, if you make your entire campus phone free. And over time, that's exactly what's happened. So now we work in thousands of schools around the world, and administrators or a principal will take on Yondr to help implement a cultural change in their school and say, all right, now every student is still going to be able to possess their phone, but it goes in this locking pouch. What Yondr provides is also all the curriculum and kind of the programming to go with that, to help the teachers, help the administrators, help the parents understand what a phone-free campus means and why we're doing it, which is very important, and also that the students understand that this is for your benefit.
Exactly.
You know, so that 8 hours a day at school becomes a phone-free space, and we see the changes happen really quickly. And parents usually tell us that they see that occur really quickly too. And generally, what we see is that. Initially, a lot of students push back and they say, "Oh, you know, my phone is too important." But after just a few weeks, a lot of the kids, I think, feel relieved. They feel like this background pressure in the back of their minds that they never could name has suddenly developed a face, and it's has everything to do with their phone.
Fascinating. I do remember from my own experience when we were in the summer hiking in the mountains. I didn't want to use my phone, so I put it on flight mode the whole day. And it really caused anxiety to turn it on again. I just really didn't want to, because I was like, then it comes this flow of information. And I just don't want to deal with it. I don't want to feel like I need to post anything on Instagram. I don't feel really I need to respond to all these WhatsApp messages or emails. I just want to be here in nature, and that's it. And a similar situation I actually had when I was working and living in China and going back and forth between China and Europe. When I was in China, I couldn't use WhatsApp anymore because it was blocked the last couple of times. And to be honest, it was actually really nice. I couldn't use Instagram, I couldn't use WhatsApp, and it was a freedom. And then afterwards, when I came back, or on the flight back, you gave back internet to Europe, right? And we had this chat group, and I got so flooded with messages that I was just so overwhelmed that I just left the group overnight, and everyone was really upset that I did. But I was just too much.
I totally get it. I think that's a big part of it. It's not just this app or this thing. It's just an overwhelming amount of inputs for people's brains, and you only have so much attention to give and energy to give every day. Where does it get used? You know, I think you see that in everything. People will start their day different ways. A lot of people read the news or things like that, and your attention and it's just carried away to a far corner of the world. I'm not saying that's bad, but so much of the way things are now are so hyperbolic, and the internet is so inherently polarizing. Doesn't do well with shades of gray. And so it's very hard for people to suspend judgment, and then your emotions and associations are attached to it. And I think a lot of people end up spending a lot of energy worrying or thinking about the news or other people and things that are in a place that you can't directly affect. And to me, that's your energy just becomes a river without banks.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, I think everyone's wrestling with how to deal with that, because so much of the modern world now is being funneled through these foundational platforms that are built around technology. And
right.
I think there's reasons to be concerned about that. For myself, you know, for the last 7 years, I don't have a smartphone. I use a flip phone, and that's great for me, but it creates all sorts of difficulties, no doubt, as the world moves this way. But my goal has also been to create these phone-free spaces. What we do is it gives people a socially acceptable way to enter into a space and to be offline, whether it's in schools, it's at a show, it's in any of the other spaces, warehouses, working areas for us. You know, your boss can't reach you. People can't reach you. There's a reason for that. And it lets you off, it lets your mind rest, I think, from all that stuff. And it's a physical, what it feels like to me is it's always been a physical tie between the phone and people. It's, of course, there's a lot of psychology wrapped up in it. But when people feel the buzz or they see the flashing lights, you have to start by interrupting that impulse to allow people's brains to rewire. And then the ideas tend to come later.
Right.
In my experience.
Yeah, I agree. I actually get very stressed when I hear the tone of my phone ringing. I'm a very, very introverted person, so I hate to take phone calls. So when my phone is ringing, I find it's very stressful. So therefore, even more when there is no phone, there is no calls. I
think you're not alone in that. I think everyone is looking for those boundaries and structures. And to me, it has a lot to do with physical space. What rooms do you work in? What rooms are electronic devices in? Where are they not? And building those associations around what those are.
Interesting.
So
when you would sort of give the audience, parents, maybe their kids are too much on their phones, or even they themselves feel they're too much on their phones, or they're having a hard time focusing on like a set up rules around the dinner table for themselves, but also for their kids or teenagers. Sort of some tips how to really maybe get at least off the phones a little more. I'm not like trying to say we have to tell everyone to become phone free immediately, but sort of a step towards a more phone free environment.
Yeah, well, we have a lot of parents that reach out to us asking to use pouches, Yondr pouches at the home, because they find that to be a useful way, a useful tool or mechanism to develop that kind of those boundaries. So that's one way. I think a lot of families are figuring it out, where they'll leave at a certain point. Maybe it's around the dinner table, all the phones and electronic devices are placed in one area and it's off to the side, and that's going to be, that's consistent, you know.
Right.
I think that's helpful. But I also think there's a broader thing that parents are trying to figure out, and a lot of people are figuring out, which is how to get the message across to younger people that what happens online it's not reality, it's something else, and how to treat it as that versus what you experience in the actual world is being primary. But for tips and things, I think that's the biggest one that we've noticed, is just creating that physical distance and that kind of expectation.
Amazing. If people are interested, how can they reach out to you?
Oh, they can reach out to anyone at Yondr by going to our website. That's overyondr.com.
I will put it in the show notes too, so people can reach out.
Of course. Yeah. We love hearing from people, and we work with all different kinds of people and all walks of life.
Amazing. So as I think somebody very obviously needs attention here, I'm very, very, very grateful for your time and inputs and insights to share your passion and story, and I hope we can continue the conversation further, because I think there is so much more to say, and but the attention span of people usually being also quite limited, and I also want them to be off screen too. So I will leave it with that and say to be continued, and thank you very much for spending time, your precious time, on the screen instead of in a beautiful LA. I think I see some blue light shining through above your window there, so I'm sure there has some nice sunshine over there. Is that true?
Oh yeah. It's actually raining today.
No, really?
It's very, very rare.
Very rare. Yeah. Okay, so hopefully the sun comes back.
I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Yeah, really, really appreciate it. Thank you. All right. I wish you a wonderful day, and hopefully we'll talk very soon again. Thank you.
All right, sounds good.